This is part of my journey, part 50, show 50, and it is Monday, the 10th of February, 2025. This is my mental health talk show, and I've spoken to a lot of people over the last, I think it's almost 4 years now. We started on the 1st of March, 2021 with Double P and Mr. Musto. We hit show 45, and now we're on show 50, and I got a very special guest. It's someone who I knew before the pandemic and sort of followed a little bit about what he was doing. And then during Twitch and the pandemic, I loved his sets, and he's been part of our 45-day events and lots of cool raid trains. We both love covers, so we're going to be talking about covers and lots of other amazing things. DJ Flipout.
Yay.
I can see and hear you. That's the main thing.
Oh, man, that's amazing. Great.
It's great to have you here. I always start at the beginning with my guests to find out their musical influences and who first got them into music, because it's a passion, and most of us have had it from a very young age. And I'm always intrigued. So brothers, sisters, siblings, friends, who first got you into music?
I have two older siblings and one younger one. And I think, it was definitely my older brother, who's 6 years older than me. First of all, he's playing music all the time. He listened to everything. He was a big Iron Maiden fan, for instance, big Sting fan, Police. And then I remember taking his Beatles cassettes that he had like 3 cassettes full of Beatles songs. And I just was drawn kind of to that. I would steal that and listen to it. I listened to a lot of the radio, AM radio here in Vancouver, Canada. A lot of people around my age group, that's what we grew up on, was AM radio and like all those classics in the 80s.
The 80s, what sort of music, particularly from then, do you remember that stood out?
I remember actually a little bit of hip hop, because the first B-boy kind of like craze happened in like mid 80s when it was worldwide, when they started calling it breakdancing. And that's when the breakdance album came out. So I was in grade 4 and 5. I kind of was really into that dancing, and I have like footage of myself when I was 10 b-boying and not knowing what it was, just copying what I saw on TV. Miami Vice had a soundtrack to their show, and there was a song by Melly Mel on it called Vice. So that's almost one. Yeah, Vice,
Yes.
Vice, Vice, Vice. So that's like one of the what?
I'll show you something. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay, look at this.
Yo.
2 LP box set of Vice, and obviously it has Vice on the
Melly Mel,
B-side.
right?
Yeah. And there's a 45 of it as well.
There is. There is. So that's one of my first kind of hip hop songs. But I remember that I was really into playing my dad's records, and they were mostly Portuguese Fado records, or like a couple Elvis LPs, one Beatles LP, the Revolver, and then my older siblings had like, my sister had Pat Benatar, and my brother had whatever, and then there was these disco compilations that my dad had, which were very dope. I remember this 4 album. Maybe this is my origin story. A 4 record LP of covers, not done by the original artist. So for so long, I thought like me and Julio at the schoolyard, that's one of my favorite songs ever. I only knew this cover by some unknown person. Had like, it's 4 LPs, like 40 songs, whatever. That being said, my family knew I was into records, and so they bought me my first 45 ever. It's going to be not that exciting. It was Rod Stewart Passion, which apparently was my favorite song at the time. And so I got it. I was like, oh, cool, it's mine. To this day, I don't really have like this affinity for it. I just remember that being my first record that I actually owned.
Did you have a record deck yourself, or was it like a family record deck that you played this on?
My dad had a hi-fi system, and it was like, it had a lid. You opened the lid, it had that arm that you, with the magnet, you could stack the records.
Yeah.
And they'd fall, right? And and then inside had a radio. So that's what we had in my house when I first started getting into records. Then I think I was 10. Everything happened around when I was 10. It's crazy. My godmother bought me a kid's turntable, like a little portable kids turntable.
Yeah.
It was Signature brand. It was just black and white, didn't have any cute characters on it. It just said Signature, black lid, white bottom. I remember peeking at Christmas, and I was like, "What's this black box? This looks lame." And then when I opened it, I still didn't know what it was, and then I opened it up, and I was like, "Oh, it's a record player." And she put the Pinocchio soundtrack picture disc, 12-inch,
Okay.
with it. So it was like this weird shaped present that was like square, and then it was bigger on the bottom. So when I opened, I was like, "Oh, cool! I got another record. It's 12 inch." So it had like I got no strings and
Yeah, yeah.
fucking some other songs on it that I barely remember. But I got no strings. I remember because I sampled that later in life when I was like 14 on one of my first beats. Yeah, so that's like the very, very beginning. But
Amazing.
also, I had a friend since I was in kindergarten whose mom was in radio and television broadcasting, South Asian radio and video broadcasting. She opened the first 24-hour South Asian radio station in Canada in 1987. I'm his best friend, and so I saw Technique 1200s like back then in at the radio station, and it was just really small. It wasn't even on AM. It was on a piggyback station, and it still exists to this day, which is crazy.
Wow.
I was around equipment really early, like the music equipment, the audio equipment was crazy, like double
Mm.
cassette decks and like 8 tracks. We had an 8-track player in our family car, which is wild. I had another older cousin who would make 8-track mixtapes. So he had an 8-track recorder.
Did you say you started sampling at 14 for that Pinocchio
Yeah,
record? So
yeah.
what would you have been using to be sampling at that age?
My friend whose mom had the radio station, Sudhir, I'm still friends with to this day. He was really into audio stuff too. Like we started DJing at the same time. So she put us on the air. His mom put us on the air, reading like the short news clippings
Right.
from the local paper, like just like a one paragraph. And like before my voice changed. And then she's like, why don't you host this kids show where in like South Asian culture, like giving birthday shout outs and doing birthday videos is a huge thing. They used to have people come through and do like a birthday video for the local, Indian channel. So she would do like birthday shout outs. So she's like, why don't you guys host this? I'll give you here's the birthday shout outs and then play these birthday songs from this like Indian friggin' album. So my
Yeah.
my friend was kind of familiar with it. I don't know what the fuck it was. I was like, "This is cool." So we're like announcing the names, and then we're like, "Hey, can we play some of our music?" Like
Yeah.
on the other side of other half of the show. She's like, "Sure." So we
Brilliant.
were starting to get into like 12 inches and stuff, and there was a dance magazine in Canada called Street Sound Magazine. And we saw a chart in that, and, we were into, like, Bobby Brown, Paul Abdul, and New Edition, and Public Enemy, rap stuff, and DJ Jazzy Jeff, the Fresh Prince, so this is '87, right? We were getting into music, and we found out about 12-inch singles, and then in this magazine, it had, like, a chart, and in the middle was a column that was this fucking number, and it was the BPM, and we're like, "What the fuck is BPM?" And then my friend, who's smart, he's one of those guys who's smart, but he was not good in school. Later, like recently, he just was diagnosed with like severe ADHD. Like
Right.
he's 50 years old. 5 years ago, he's like, maybe I should get myself checked out. So in elementary school and shit, he was always given a hard time. He was like a slow kid, but he was super smart.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's like, oh, BPM, beats per minute, right? And we're like, holy shit, what is so we got a stopwatch and we were like, let's count for 1 minute somehow of on beat. So we figured out which beat to count on and it matched like holy shit, like Poison, 112. So we went through our little record collection that we bought at the store and we BPM counted our shit. Then we started trying to mix because at the same time in my high school, there was already people who were getting mixtapes from people that knew how to DJ. So I would make a mixtape and I would give it to my friend, and he was also South Asian. He's also brown, and the brown DJs in Vancouver were one of the first DJs. Brown dudes and Filipinos were the first kind of hip hop people in Vancouver area. So the couple brown DJs were making mixtapes. So I made one, and then my friend Nabil is like, no, you got to play the songs at the same time, like before one ends. I'm like, okay. So I just right. And then
Yeah.
I gave it back to him. He's like, "No, no, they gotta it can't just it's gotta sound good." I'm like, "I don't know what the hell you talk I don't know what you're talking about." So then I was trying stuff, and I actually by accident mixed "Rub You the Right Way" by Johnny Gill, "Poison" by Belle Biv DeVoe, and "All Right" by Janet by accident. Later to find out they're all 112 BPM. So I actually did it because I had the musicality to start it properly and stuff. So I kind of like fell into it. And my friend Sadir, he didn't really catch on like I did, but we were both into like collecting music. And then I kind of like just I got so into it because it was unlocking all this stuff. And when I found out about DJing, like real DJing, I was like, this is crazy. So because DJing was introduced to me through hip hop, like DJing music for me was only hip hop, really. Not even disco felt like it was supposed to be DJ'd like that. Disco felt really old, even though it was like 10 years, less than 10 years before, right? And it felt like, but now I know, DJing started in the 60s and disco
Yeah.
DJing was a real thing. But at the time, I was like, hip hop is the only thing to do.
Here's a question. So you talk about obviously being into Jazzy Jeff at that age, and
Yeah.
obviously you're good friends with Jazzy Jeff. Playlist
Yeah.
Retreat and all of that. Is it weird thinking back to your like 14-year-old self and being into that music? And I guess you
It's
never thought then you'd be friends with him later in life.
it's absolutely wild. It's crazy. It happened like in my adulthood, right? So
Yeah.
I've seen it. I've seen people meeting him as well for the first time at the playlist retreat, like getting invited by him and then only meeting him in real life when they go to his house. I knew him before I got invited to the first playlist retreat. I knew him through the Red Bull Freestyle. He was a guest judge, and that's how I kind of met him officially. And that's how he got the idea for the playlist retreat from the Red Bull Freestyle of a
Okay.
bunch of people being in the same spot over a number of days. And once the surface talk goes out, what do you talk about at breakfast on day three? You start talking about real shit. So
Yeah.
that's why he made the playlist. But yeah, thinking when me and Sadir were listening to Jazzy Jeff and like, I knew every single word on that album. I knew every rap on the second album and the first, but mostly the second album. I knew every word and stuff. And me being so nerdy to this day and annoying at times. When I first started meeting Jeff, I would just be like run up on him and be like, before like he would just be in the same area at Red Bull 3 stop, be like, too damn hype, we're too damn hype, and like doing like skits from like his third album, and he would just kind of he would laugh, right? And then I would do like, when we rock the house, there is no doubt, and I would do like all of Rock the House, and he's like, what the fuck? And he would always be so cool about it, and I would be so geeky and geeked out, and I'd be
Yeah.
doing it around because I was a bit drunk, so I just let loose. But he got to know me, and maybe that's one of the things that he liked about was
Well, I
that
mean, it's just amazing, isn't it, that he's been around in your life and in anyone of sort of, our age and who's been into
yeah,
hip hop. He's been such a constant as well.
yeah,
He's been there. It's all good stuff. And then even like through the pandemic and putting on the live streams and sort of doing all of that, he's been on top of
yeah,
his game for a long time. So it's impressive.
yeah. I was just gonna say, to me, when I think about Jeff and when I see him, he me at 14 is the Jeff that he represents for me. I watched him on Fresh Prince. It doesn't I hardly ever think about that about him. I seen him. I saw him live a bunch of times, like in Vancouver when he was touring with Skills, when Skills was his MC for a minute, and I saw him like in 2000, and that was exciting because I was like, oh, he actually DJs. Like he's not going to play his own music. But when I think about him, when someone asks me about him, it is that 14-year-old person. Like this is the guy that introduced me to everything
Yeah.
of DJing, and he still champions the art in more ways than one. He's really, he's a Quincy Jones was his mentor, and he definitely is the Quincy Jones of our generation, 100%.
Amazing.
So
Tell us a little bit about the playlist, because obviously you say by the third day, talk starts getting real. Is that from a opening up and talking about, like you say, real stuff like family and emotions and mental health and things like that? Is that the sort of level it gets to?
kinda, yeah, kinda, and it's yeah, and it's also people who DJs are sometimes kind of loners, not like in a sad way, for like not in a sad way specifically, but like just like you're in your bedroom practicing, right? And then you get out and then you're out there and you have to perform. And so talking to other people who are in the same world as you was actually kind of new. Like for the freestyle to do that was new because we had DMCs and all this shit, but it wasn't the same for a lot of reasons. The Kenny Mack who made up the freestyle, he made it up to not be about DJing. DJing was the last part of what he was trying to showcase. He was trying to showcase the party and the connection, the party rocker. That's why I was like, who can rock the party the best using more than just one genre of music? Like, let's play a lot of fun stuff. That's was the beginning of it. Play at least three styles of music, which now seems ridiculous, but at that point, it was when Serato had first kind of jumped, was more popular, was more used. So nobody really competed with records unless they were trying to make a statement. Everyone was using this technology. So there is Jeff again, championing technology. But back to three style. Yeah, so Kenny made this thing where the first World Finals was one day in Paris, and it was like fucking 10 hours long. Like they did all the prelims and the finals. It was too long, right? So the
Yeah.
next year he's like, what if I spread it over a week, or 5 days at least? So the second World Finals was in Vancouver, was in my city. And I got to host it because I asked, I begged. I was like, yeah, because they were still asking people to enter it at that point. They're like, yo, can you enter this? We need people to enter this. I had won the Vancouver regional the year before. So the following year, they're like, yo, can you please enter again? I'm like, no, Headspin's entering. He's going to win everything. I'm not. They're like, come on. And I'm like, okay, look, can I host the World Finals? And they're like, maybe. I'm like, okay, I'll enter. So I entered. And then they kind of gave me the half job. Like I got to do, they still had someone else do like these live updates. But anyway, so it was a week long, and Kenny Mac got all the DJs to stay in the same hotel. So every night there was this penthouse party, and everybody was there, and it was Kate. Like the food would come, late night food would come, and people were just playing records, and then yeah, just every night there would be like a party.
Yeah.
So it just
Of
became like
like-minded people, isn't it?
of
That's the thing.
like-minded people that love music and were actually DJs and from all over the world. So we got to connect all the different vibes and people. There was no room for any bullshit. There's no room for anything except
But
for
no ego at
positivity.
all. Everyone's just there.
No way.
Yeah.
No way. Only a few people ever copped the attitude. I don't even know where they are now. A couple people were really like introverted, and that's not their fault. But like everyone just, it was always a friggin' party. And it got better and better, aka worse and worse as it went on. Like when in Azerbaijan, we had a whole resort, a brand new resort. We were the first people to ever stay there. And that's when
Incredible.
that's where Jeff got the idea, was that one. That was 10 years ago. That's where he got the idea, because we were just there having breakfast. And it was Azerbaijan, so the food is just like was foreign to almost everybody. It was like Eastern European food, like is just lamb. Every
Just meat.
fucking
Yeah.
just meat, specifically lamb. You could have lamb at breakfast, for sure for lunch, and for sure for dinner. It's crazy. It was yeah, it was bonding. Then everyone started ordering spaghetti from the hotel because they had spaghetti and
Yeah.
shit.
I don't know if Double
Anyway,
P is saying sweet because of all the lamb or because of something else. But hello, Double P. Hello, DJ
but
Baloo, Benny Goggs. Let's go back a little bit. You've
yeah.
explained how you sort of first were DJing at the your friend's mum's sort of radio sort of show. How did that then transpire into actually sort of starting gigging in terms of DJing out?
Just slightly later. I have to always refer to like my grade, because that keeps it all kind of in check. So that's grade 8. That's like an 87. I guess I can do the year, but okay, I'm 14 with my friend learning how to DJ, and then started going to like all ages dances, and that would be people from other parts of the city. So I met like other people who were into DJing. So I had a little friend group that was from, not from my immediate neighborhood, from like another part of Vancouver, East Vancouver, which was more like not hardcore, but it was like East Van. The east side of any city is always that part of the city. So I would go hang out at their houses all the time, and we started having like a little house party. I would use my friend Sadir's. My Sadir wouldn't really be with me there. Like I was going. I would ride my bike. I would take the bus. I would do all this stuff. But I would take Sadir's equipment and did a couple of house parties. I remember a couple of house parties, and this is when, I was playing Gangstar second album stuff and Scenario, I mean, and stuff like that. Like
And it's
my
incredible that
my
you still play this stuff.
still play it.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
wild.
45 now, obviously, but it's still
Yeah.
it's still
Yeah. Those songs, right? Yeah.
yeah,
I borrowed my friend Sadir's turntables until I was until 10 almost 10 years into DJing. I didn't have my own turntables. Couldn't afford them, and I could just borrow his. He found out about record pools, so he was part of an American record pool, so he got like that's in the early 90s. So I was like really, really into it. I was really into getting records, not 45s, unfortunately. If I'd started 45s when I started DJing, I would be on some other planet right now. I'd be like with Supreme and those guys and stuff like that, But how would you know if someone didn't show you that at such a young age, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Even through the 90s, I got into 45s way late.
It
I got
seems
into
like it's been a sort
45s.
of not forgotten format, but people just ignored it, didn't they, for a long time? And it's amazing that it's sort of had this revolution where it's come back into fashion now, isn't it? And people are sort of specifically doing 45 sets.
Yeah. Well, I got back into it in '09, I think, and Headspin was getting back into it. But I remember like before that, Peanut Butter Wolf was doing tours. But I guess I'm lucky enough to know one guy, Vinyl Richie, in my city, who has always had 45 since the beginning, and he's been DJing a little bit longer than I have, so since like '86. So he has records from back then that he bought, and he's into punk, and he's into surf, and he's into a lot of different shit. But he was buying rap 45s in the '90s because they were cheaper. So
Yeah,
not because he was looking for something cool. They were cheaper, and he could buy more records. So that's great that I have him. And when I started getting into 45s, he was just so stoked that I was just like head first. And I
yeah,
made a crazy budget for myself in the first like few years of getting into 45s and like in '09. I had a because I was referring back to when I would have to buy records every week to survive as a DJ buying
yeah,
12 inches, right? We were buying like $200 a week at least of records. That's a lot of money. I remember not
yeah,
having money for anything else. So, at the point when I started doing 45s, I was making okay, like doing pretty good and saving a lot of money because it was all Serato. So I'm like, you know what? Let me do this $1,000 a month budget on records on
on
45.
45s.
So on
Yeah,
45. So if I go to my Discogs history and I go to the first like when I found out first of all, I found out Discogs had all the information. I'm like, "Oh, this is crazy. I have this record." And then my friend Vinyl Richie, Scott, he's like, "You can buy records there too, you know?" I'm like, "What? You can buy records on Discogs?" And I looked more closely. I'm like, "What the?" And I was fucking mind blown, And then he's like, "Yeah, there's this place called Juno too." I'm like, "What's that?" And I go to Juno and I'm like, "What is this place?" And this is when Juno still had used records. I don't know if you remember that.
no,
They used
used records. No, I don't think I've ever.
yeah, they used
I don't think
yeah,
I've
they
ever
used to
known
s
Juno with used records. Wow. Okay,
yeah,
that's
they used to
interesting.
have that was only like 15 years ago now, but so I was gonna say my first Discogs orders are like fucking 40 records,
But they were
but a
cheaper
bunch
then.
of
They were
cheap. They
cheaper.
were they were
Yeah,
dollar records. I was just like piling everything,
yeah,
but it was like bump, 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 bump. And anytime there was something, I would have my when I would open my my browser, my wish list would be the first thing that came up from Discogs. So if something popped up, I would see it
right.
right away.
Yeah,
And on man, I was going crazy for a number of years. So if anyone wonders, and part of that was because I was doing the three style at the time, and Kenny Mack was like, "Yo, I got this idea. Why don't you do a 45 set at the beginning of the night to show people like blah blah?" And I'm like, "Dope." So that was like super incentive. So now I'm doing this. I'm kind of thrust into this place of representing 45s, but I was cool with it because all it was me catching up with what I already knew with the 45 format, right? So I'm
Yeah.
like,
So your skills are there, but it's just changing it
yeah,
to a different format.
yeah, and like looking for like original samples. Like I didn't even buy original sample 12 inches. I used to buy those compilations like Tribe Vibes Volume 3, which would have all the samples on them, like a double LP. So I never had the original records. So when I started getting to 45s, I'm like, "Oh, I gotta get the original shit." So it's
Yeah.
part of it. They're not rules, but the part of this kind of like
Culture.
culture. Yeah.
I like that there's different elements of the 45s culture. Like you've got the reggae sort of 45s, and then you've got the sound clashing and all of that. Then you've got the sort of northern soul and the sort of crazy prices for stuff like that. Then you've got the funk. Then you've
Yeah.
got now the hip
Yeah.
hop. And it's incredible that there's so many different niches. Even like punk 45s. There's
Oh
pretty much
yeah.
everything.
The specials played at the club, and we had a night in the restaurant underneath it every Wednesday. And the specials played one night, and he just played the whole night. And after the concert, he had the place going crazy. He knows every punk 45. He has like punk 45s that are worth thousands of dollars, and it's crazy. And yeah, all these different kind of 45 cultures,
Yeah.
all
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 over the
one,
world. Yeah. So how
all
did
over.
that go then? So that was that the first time the 45s, like a 45 set, had been played at Three Star?
No, 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 not at all. But it was just Vinyl Richie actually did a opening set at the Vancouver World
Okay.
Finals, and he played like Sepultura and shit. And he put a mask on, and he did all types of crazy shit. And at that time, I was just like, he's crazy. This is wild. He's playing these records. That's crazy. Like I was so still like a passive spectator. I had so much
Yeah.
respect for him, but I was just like, this is kind of weird. Like, why are you playing this? But then when I got into it, and now I'm like, if something's on 45, it's only on 45. That's something. That's something
Yeah.
that's very cool.
And quite
Some people are
limited
like,
because they're
and
not
quite limited. Yeah.
they don't press massive numbers of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see people getting kind of people entering into 45s most recently, and they're really into like stuff that they know. I was into stuff that I know, but I was also into stuff that I didn't know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a lot of stuff, and like, oh, or a song that was only available on that the 45 only came out like once, and then you have to go find it. So if you play it, if someone knows, they're like, that's cool that you got that. It's not like you're not like, I'm the best. You're just like, oh, the other person that knows what we're doing in this culture is reacting. If I cared, if people cared about what people who didn't understand what they were doing, if they cared about that a lot, then the 45 is definitely not the way to go
Yeah.
because it's a little niche. I don't know.
It's a real niche, isn't it? But it's a good community. It's a good
It
part
is.
of the DJ community, isn't it? That's I think
Yeah.
why it's attractive because it brings you in, the format brings you in, but then like you say, the people you meet are just like nerds like you and me and
Yeah.
people like Sam Tweaks and all these other
Yeah.
people who are sort of crazy about 45s.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Sam gets it. He's got it
yeah,
from since I've ever heard about him because he'll play a whole set of, it's something you could maybe play on your computer, but you're like, you know what I mean? Like, but he's doing it with records. And he's doing it really well.
he's a
Fun.
showman. He
Yeah.
puts sets together very well.
He kills genres. Like he kills like it's not even a genre. It's just like he kills a certain style. He just has his thing where you know,
Yeah,
I don't know.
he's blushing now, but
Is he?
yeah. Well, let's go back a little bit to the producing because obviously you said you were sampling at sort of like 14. Did you get a first release at some point soon after that, or did it take some time before you got some music out?
It took a little bit of time, not much actually. Me and my friends Sudir, going back to Sudir. So this is, 87, 88, 89. And he found out, he's like, there's something called a sampler. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And he's like, we're gonna rent one. So we rented, I think it was an ASR 10 keyboard sampler, and we couldn't figure it out. We put a sound in, we were like, "Meow, meow, meow, meow." We're like, I guess. We couldn't figure it out. So then he's like, oh, there's this mixer this Gemini mixer. It's got a 7-second sampler on it. I'm gonna buy it." So he saved his money and he bought the Gemini. I wish I would knew exactly which one it was because people would know. It was like a 6 channel Gemini with the crossfader, but then it had a 7-second sampler. And then on that thing, you'd have to loop it. It was harder to loop than a friggin' a Vine. A friend of mine, I forget who it was, had a 4-track recorder. So a 4-track, you just needed a cassette tape because a cassette has 4 tracks, two stereo going one way, two stereo going the other way. So a 4-track, it takes every track on a cassette and makes it its own track. There you go.
Okay.
4 mono tracks. So whenever you hear about that, that's what it is. I got one and then I started making my own beats on there, just looping on the sampler and recording them on the 4-track on top of each other. So this is me trying to copy De La, and
And you're sampling records, obviously, that you've got.
I sampled like I Love Music, OJ's, and then it looped, doom, 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 and then I added like, I think I looped the drum, and then I had like something else. So those were like the like crude first beats I made, and then I ended up making like a mega mix on the 4-track, and that's where I really got part of my passion was layering different songs. So that's where I am now, right? Doing all these edits and putting songs together that already exist, but I was doing like mixes, and I did a pretty dope one. I don't have a copy of it, but it had like it was a 91 Tribe on it and Ziggy, lots of different shit. So that's when I kind of wanted to make beats, but had no idea. Man, there's a couple of people like there was another guy that I knew, a guy named Lino. He was a Filipino rapper, producer, and he invited me to his house. I don't know what it was. And we made a beat, and he had every ultimate beat and breaks, and I didn't even know about them. He had every single one, and he had them like all digitized on disc already. So he would
Wow.
just go to his floppy disks and be like, "Here's all the break beats from this." He was kind of ahead of his time. I made some beats with him. I would tell him the samples. I'll bring him the samples. And I also was in a rap contest and I won. And one of the prizes was to work with this beat maker. So I went to his house. His name was Chazzy B. He's still around. He's still in Vancouver. And he was the first guy. He had a steel cabinet full of records. He also had the UBBs compilation.
Yeah.
So I brought some samples to him. I brought Me and Julio by the Schoolyard because that's my childhood, whatever. He added a bass line from Herbie Hancock and added the drums from I Wouldn't Change a Thing and the horns from a Cool in the Gang song and made a song for me and my rap partner at the time. I guess I was in grade 10. So this is 1990. And so I got to see that. I got to see the beats being made. And then I became solo because my friend didn't really want to rap anymore. But my friends were still the backup dancers. And we met the Rascals. And then one of the Rascals, Mad Child from Swollen Members used to be in the Rascals the very beginning. I don't know if these names mean anything to people, but Mad Child went solo. And then he asked me to do a song with him because he knew I was solo. And then he's like, and then we did one song, and he's like, "Why don't we just make a group?" And I'm like, "Okay." So then we would go to this guy's house, Roger Swan, who was the producer in the city, who was producing like Rascals. He had the equipment, he had an Atari sequencer and samplers, and his dad had Mad Jazz Records. And it was like an hour and a half bus ride, and I would go there and I would bring the samples to him, and he would put them together.
What were you putting the samples into?
Floppy disk, yeah, like a S550, S900, I think. A skinny rack mount one with a very small screen, and then a bigger white rack mount one. I don't know if anyone in the chat. So he was using that, and then I was still not hands-on. And to sequence it, he was using an Atari, and it was a program called Creator or some shit like that. So I was making beats and I was rapping and I was making songs, and we set for me and Matt Child's group, we sampled the Pinocchio record. You know what I mean? I was recording stuff off Sesame Street, and we made a beat off of some loop on there, and I would find random shit, right? And then Roger got a job at a studio, a real studio, and then me and Matt Child got signed to a record label. in 92. We would go to the studio and record, and then Roger would be recording someone in the main studio, but he'd have his equipment in the little room next door. So I would go there and I learned how to use the equipment there. And
Cool.
that's when I started making my own beats. And I would get samples. Like I would do things like record the jazz station for like all night, then listen to the cassette at the studio and pick little jazz samples out because I was trying to be like Tribe, like Pete Rock, and I didn't know where to find these jazz samples. So I did that, and so that's when I started making beats
So you're
by
sampling those
myself.
off the radio,
A couple of things, yeah. But I
yeah,
later found out that it was like "Feel Like Making Love," Bob James, like it was
right.
an actual record. Like I found out later. I was like, "Oh, those are real songs. Like they're not just some magical no name, no name songs that I sampled." It's like, "Oh, those were the actual artists." So it was a good
Proper artist.
station I was recording. So I
Amazing.
don't know. That was a long-winded answer, but I had to get there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Yeah, but it's just going back, isn't it? And then obviously it's connecting with what and how you've got to the situation you've got to, and it's great hearing the story, and that's why I love these shows because you hear stuff that you probably haven't spoken about recently or whatever, and it's great to sort of get into the brain and see what's going on.
yeah,
Let's move things forward a little bit. We said we were going to talk about the pandemic because I think it's an important thing and it's
yeah.
brought a lot of us together through
Yeah.
Twitch and live streaming. So what was going on, obviously career wise and DJing and producing just before the pandemic hit, and did you have plans for things that didn't happen?
Well, I know you mentioned earlier when I was talking about Jeff about people talking about things on the third day, like they talk about mental health. I know you're asking that, and I was going to get to that, and that kind of leads to here.
Okay.
So yeah, that was a big part of it. It was talking about the struggles of being a DJ and how to balance life, and a lot of some of them had a new family, were new dads mostly, because there's a lot of guys at that point. 2019, that was the first playlist retreat I was invited to. So that was the fifth. I think that was the fifth one. So he'd already done four, and I was just outside looking in, like going on IG and looking at the hashtag, and just I would literally call Headspin. Let's go. I'll take you for a coffee.
Yeah.
Go and just ask him everything. And then Nick Bike got invited the year before I was, so I was asked Nick everything, and I want to know everything about it. So in 2019, I got asked to go, and yeah, one panel was like was balancing life and touring, mostly for touring DJs, and
And when people sort of talking and questions and stuff from audience
yeah,
members.
yeah, it was Jeff Basted,
These are all DJs and like top of their game, aren't they?
yeah,
Jeff, Ambassador, and so it must be amazing. Firstly, hearing them talking about their experiences of the industry and DJing and the pressures.
yeah, especially Jeff, and also at that time, at that playlist, De La was there, Pasta News and Mace were there. Dave wasn't there. Dave didn't come, and Pos he wrote a song about, I think it's trying people, where he talks about traveling the world and he's got all these fans, and but his girl's not one of them, and it was, I remember the playlist, so many people. De La did a panel as well, and someone stood up and said, I just want to say, like, trying people is the craziest song, blah blah, and Paz is like, that song is everything to us, and like multiple people in the audience are like, that's my jam. And then they all talked about that for a minute, and they said how it was hard to write it because it was so expository. It's like, he literally says, my girlfriend was not into me being a traveling rapper, or his wife. I don't know what it was at the time. I think he's with someone different now, but I don't know if that's the point or not. But so yeah, in 2019, I went to the retreat for the first time, got all this got inspiration to do edits more. You know what I mean? I could see that there was other people that were into it. I was discovering even more artists and people that were really into preserving and celebrating the culture and really preserving aspects of it, because hip hop gets exploited every day, right? Like so much, but you got to know that there are people like Jeff and grassroots people, people that have been there from almost basically the beginning, who have had commercial success that are still deeply embedded in the true essence of it, which is it's an art form. There's also been panels on how to monetize your art form, but not at the expense of the art form. That's the whole point of it. So this year or last year, Ryan Leslie was a special guest. If anyone knows about Ryan Leslie, is he was basically kind of blackballed from the industry, but he made his own lane. So he set up a whole thing where you sign up for his fan club, whatever, and you get a text from him personally, like automated, but from him. And then he'll text you and tell you he's having a show and put a link to buy tickets. And then he knows exactly who's coming. You know what I mean? He knows that they're coming for him, and he can totally make a show and not worry about advertising himself. He's got his fan base. And Jeff told us that that's the same as what New Kids on the Block did, because he toured with New Kids last year, and he says the best tour he's ever been on in his life. And then he's like, "Did you ever see an advertisement in your city for them?" He's like, "No, you never saw it, but it was sold out all the time. Why? Because their fans know where they're going to be. So it doesn't matter. You find that, and if you get success, even a little bit, you really treat them like real family and treat them like with respect and build that. So those are some of the things that are talked about at the playlist. So that doesn't really apply to me, but it's great hearing and seeing these stories. And I didn't answer your question at all.
No, no, but it's I forgot what my question was. Uh,
It was what was I up to before the pandemic? And
yeah,
yeah, I was
okay.
just
Let's
I was
take
just
two.
cruising along.
What were you up to
I
before the
mean,
pandemic?
we were gonna do we were finishing our we were gonna have a grand closing of our flip vinyl night that Vinyl Richie and I did for like 8 years. We're gonna close it down because the venue was closing, and we never got to do the last night
Oh.
because the last night was the first week of COVID. Yeah, man, it seems like so friggin' long ago.
Well,
Um,
if you think about it, it's March 2020 was when the sort of UK lockdown, and
yeah,
that's almost 5 years. That's half a decade. I think that's why
yeah,
it is a long time ago
it is a long
when it
time
kicked
ago.
in, and obviously so much
March
has happened
13th,
since.
Friday, March 13th was the day when the
Yeah,
lockdown started here.
yeah, we
So
weren't far behind you. I think maybe a day or two
yeah,
behind Canada, but
but
yeah. So that must have just been like,
I mean,
did you? What did you? I mean, did you think? I've had people on before, and I think Mark Hype was like, "Yeah, I knew it wasn't going to be like a week or 2 weeks. I knew this was like serious, and it was going to be long term." I mean, did you think it was going to be as long as you first thought?
yeah, I had a feeling. It seemed crazy. It seemed it's very surreal, but because in Vancouver, they boarded up businesses on the main shopping strip here in downtown Vancouver. It was boarded up, like they were not opening up. The first few months, I was kind of a disaster because my I just got a puppy, and the puppy died unexpectedly on the day lockdown started. So
Oh
that's why the March 13th
God,
is so ingrained in me, because the dog died during its spay surgery, died on the table, like just inexplicably. Dog was 9 months old, like my first puppy in my life.
God,
So that just sent me into a fucking spiral for the first month. Like, and so it was crazy to me. Like everything shut down, and my whole emotions shut down. I was a fucking mess. Like I've, people have passed away. I've had, traumatic and tragic things happen with death, and this was up there. It was the same
yeah,
level with a little puppy. I don't know if because the lockdown made it even crazier, but yeah. So and then like no gigs, right? Every gig is shut down
yeah,
except my radio station gig where I do a 1 hour radio show stayed, but I stopped going to the station because I didn't feel like going there, and I was just recorded every show. So I was just in my house for a month straight. Like I literally wouldn't go outside at all. Just mourning, mourning my dog. It was shit times. But I would get on and I would stream. and I would be up until fucking it was kind of perfect for me because I do so many things at night where I'm just like zoning out on doing weird things that I was just up till 5 w- looking at Twitch and watching people's streams and
When
getting into things.
when did you find it? I mean, did you obviously were you watching before you sort of took the plunge and started streaming, or did you just stream straight away?
No, it was through Playlist Retreat. Like after the 2019 Playlist Retreat, we made a WhatsApp group chat. So that chat was super active. Rome Diggs was in there. I don't know if you know Rome, but Rome does a lot of beat junkie stuff and he does a lot of stuff. And he told us about another streaming platform. Remember there was another one that had like musicians, um, like jazz musicians, and there was a couple of DJs could be up there. Anyway, he
I don't
he
know.
was telling us
Yeah,
about that. But in the chat, people were like, get on Twitch, and there was the one guy from Twitch. I forget what his name was, but he was friends with the Vegas DJs. So all the Vegas DJs got on there. So I'm watching and I did a couple of IG lives and then I got on Twitch right away and it was pretty rudimentary. Like I was using the camera from my computer. I have a camera. I would set my computer up and put it sideways, but I did 45s only. So yeah, it was through the chat, through the playlist chat and started doing that. But dudes like DJ Franzen, his streaming didn't look awesome, but it looked like he was really comfortable with it. And he ended up streaming for like 2 years straight every day. I don't know if you know that.
right. That's
Two
hard.
or 3 years, something every night, because he's in
That's a
Vegas.
lot of
Just
work.
Vegas was shut down, but he would do it. He would, he'd be smoking his weed and stuff on thing. He'd just be up for hours, and then I found out that he used to be on whatever the other streaming thing was. So he already knew how to do it. I would get really kind of fucking worked up about fucking up on a stream, because I thought it was like a performance. It was super stressful to me. I didn't really get that you just fucking relax and have fun. And I tried to be like perfect and not fuck up. It was actually causing me stress for a minute. I had to chill the fuck out.
And then, did you find yourself, like you said earlier about setting yourself a budget? Did you find you were buying more records because you were streaming so much, or were you just literally going through what you already had?
I was trying to go through what I had, but I still was buying stuff because I still wasn't totally broke, but I was getting there. But I definitely slowed the fuck down. But in my mind, I'm like, this is a perfect opportunity for me to do all these sets and get it out of my system. And I was doing pretty good. Like I had a notebook. I was writing down sets that I should do. And I actually didn't even get around to doing like a classic rock one. I did most everything. I'm just looking at my room now. I did a lot. I did Stevie Wonder sets for his birthday. I would do birthday sets for people like Jeff, 5 hours, every 45 that's ever been connected to him. Yeah, I was going through all my stuff. It was good to go through my shit that I had accumulated. Because I'd also been traveling with the Red Bull 3 style and buying records overseas. Nothing that was from overseas, but like
Stuff
a
you'd
bunch
find in
of
the wild overseas. And I think
yeah,
I saw some, I've seen these that you post it back to yourself, and then when you get home, you got like a massive stack of records to open.
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got me a chance to really delve into doing these sets.
And
So that was
nice
fun.
theme sets and like really interesting. Now we haven't yet touched upon it, other than early on you had a compilation of covers. But why are covers such a big thing? Because obviously you're very well known for covers, version excursions. Like I don't know
I
how
don't
many Stevie covers you have of a particular song, but what is it about them that really drags you in?
maybe it's Stevie covers that really drags me in because Sean Lala, my homie, rest in peace, elsewhere Sonido. He was a super, me and him were such big Bobito and Spinna Stevie wrote it fans. So, Bobito and Spinna are the kings of that, where they made those comps that just had Stevie covers. They
Yeah,
unearthed so many gems. And then when Sean started digging and traveling, he started finding stuff that was his main goal. So he would find like Mexican covers of Sir Duke, and he found them. Like no one had really played that before. Covers is just I don't know, man. It's just a it's really interesting, huh? How it became a thing. I guess it's just that's a fucking good question because it really is.
I don't know what it is. I mean, we do cover versions, and you've
Yeah,
been on cover stuff that we've done. There's just something about it, isn't it? Playing a record that someone knows, but is
yeah,
completely different, and it just makes
yeah,
your brain work. You're like, oh, I recognize this song. Oh, hold on, it's not that artist.
yeah,
Who is this artist? And then, especially when you start hearing three, four, five different versions in a row, you're like, actually, this song is quite something because lots of people have covered it. And I love finding
yeah,
songs like that. That's the version excursions were amazing. So
yeah.
what's the
I mean,
longest version excursion you've done? How many of the same record, so over the same song, have you got?
oh, I did. I was trying to do a sing a simple song.
Yeah,
I think I did a half. I did about half 45 minutes, I think.
yeah.
And yeah, and I still don't have like three. There are three on 45. There's one that's a holy grail. Like I don't even want to tell you what it is, because I don't want anyone to start looking for it. I don't want anyone else to look for it. But there's one that's a grail. It's a bootleg. I can't say anything else.
No,
I got
leave
to
it at
keep
that.
that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that and then Get Out My Life Woman. I got a bunch of those. But Sing a Simple Song is incredible how many covers. Only on 40 and on 45.
Yeah.
Like I'm not talking about like on LPs. There's hundreds. But you know what? Now that I remember, I was really into finding Eleanor Rigby covers before I was into 45s
Okay.
and Ain't No Sunshine. Because
Yeah.
Ain't No Sunshine, I found out just being a nerd on Wikipedia one day. I was like, oh, this is the most covered song in the world in history. Like, let me find some of these. So I started looking for them. Bobbito and Spinna. That's the main inspiration for the covers. They made it a thing, right? So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah, and
know,
those albums were amazing. Okay, we've got a few more things to talk about, and then we'll sort of call it a close. We might have to do a part two at some point. But a big part of obviously my sort of channel is my daughter's easy, but also a big part of your channel was Mars, and obviously it's amazing to. I mean, how what is she now? Three, maybe four?
she's three, almost three and a
Three,
half. Yeah.
3.5, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you had the video of basically when she was born, pretty much, and you'd have
Yeah.
it playing on your green screen behind you. I mean,
Yeah.
was it pretty amazing to be able to share that experience with like your community and people you sort of knew through Twitch and online?
Yeah. It was kind of cool. I mean, yeah, that it was still kind of lockdowny. Only one person was allowed at the hospital as a guest when she was born. It was still kind of weird at that time. So a lot of my immediate family didn't really meet her for a little bit. We'd have to do like one person can come over kind of thing because we were tripping out too about her getting COVID, right? We were being
Yeah,
very cautious. But yeah, on Twitch it was cool because when my partner was pregnant, I started doing Isle of Jazz. I started doing
yeah,
these jazz streams in the
yeah,
morning, and I feel like Mars is hearing that. Even when I was doing it, I'm like, this is awesome for the pregnancy because it's this jazz music going on for like in the morning, and I was kind of gaining some momentum with it. I started buying records just for that. I started buying like jazz records. It was definitely fun because, yeah, I saw like you with your daughter, and I saw someone else with their kids on the stream, and I always thought it was super cute. And even Coco, when Coco's son was super small, he used the Bjorn, he used the carrier,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
he did some routines. I kind of was like, oh, this is cool. And I would hold her and have her in there and stuff and do streams, and she would be like sitting there. Yeah, it was super cool, man. Like,
Just a
it
nice
was cool,
bond.
but
Just a nice bond as
yeah,
well. I
but at
mean,
the same time, everything, my whole schedule changed once she was born, and it never was the same. I never got back into a regular streaming schedule to this day because it turned out that the we had to make her bedroom, the nursery, behind the false wall where I streamed.
All right.
So
Okay.
I couldn't have the speakers on.
No.
And, to this day, I still can't. So that's the sad part of my Twitch journey is that although it was a beautiful thing leading up to my daughter's being born and everything, once she was born, my Twitch shit went down the drain because schedule got all fucked up and I couldn't stream whenever I wanted to. And
Yeah.
but it was really, yeah, it was really special. Like, and I didn't really realize like I had all that footage of when she was born, and I thought I'm gonna have tons of footage of her, blah blah. And like, I didn't really take any other footage except for that first day, and it's kind of really really special to have that
Yeah.
because that seems like a long time ago. As a parent, you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
how time is just ridiculous. If you think about, you know, never mind someone being born in pandemic and then now being 4. What about when they were 5 and now they're 9?
Yeah.
They're a whole
Well,
other
exactly. I
tax
mean,
bracket.
yeah, like I mean, Zizi's gonna be 11 next month, and obviously she's
Yeah,
been like from 6, like going on the streams and doing the 45 kids and
yeah,
things, and it's the same because I put together clips of like old 45 kids show and up to sort of that, and it's just so interesting to see the kids on there because it's just a little bit of history. It's like shooting an old like Super 8 or something, isn't it?
yeah,
Like or a film or
yeah,
something like that. It's
yeah.
it's cool to be able to look back and see how these kids have got involved. Yeah, so you're obviously not able to go on Twitch. Are you still doing some streams?
I do Raiders of the Lost Art
Yeah,
regularly. I couldn't do it this month because I was away, but that's at the beginning of the month. Like I had to give up my Soul Train slot a couple like over a year ago, almost
yeah,
2 years ago, because it was during it was when I had to drop her off at school and like I had to pick her up, not school, like at daycare.
yeah, yeah.
And you know how hectic this Soul Train. Everyone wants to get on Soul Train, so I couldn't even swap with anyone, and I missed a couple, so that was a bad look. You know, everyone's trying to get a slot, and I'm just like missed it because super like just
Yeah,
newborn dad brain.
especially
So
especially early years as well. There's so much going on, and it's Twitch. We're still there. I
yeah,
mean, did you think you'd still be doing it 5 years after you
I wanted to, man. I
started?
really wanted to, yeah, because I saw people like Four Color Zach kind of go crazy on it, and I'm like, wow, he really just
Just
knew what he
smashed it.
was doing
Yeah,
right away. Like, how did he know to make a variety show?
yeah.
Like, how did he know not to take it so serious? I know the guy, and I was like, this is shows he has some kind of intel. He
That
has some
shows you
insider information.
yeah. I
But
remember watching his streams, and it would be, like, really early in the morning here. I'd get up in the morning, and I'd be like, "What is going on with this stream?" It's
yeah,
crazy,
yeah, yeah,
I
it
mean
was cool. He was doing exactly what he wanted. So that was that was
yeah,
inspiring to see. And then with Bastard too, but you know, Bastard is a very well established guy. He took it seriously and he looks at it as a radio show. So
yeah.
he's always had wanted to have a radio show. So does it to play new music and stuff like that. So
The ultimate radio show, isn't it? Because
yeah,
whereas on a radio show, people say, "Oh, text in or message us or whatever to interact." With this, you can interact straight away with anyone watching and anyone viewing and be a part
yeah,
of it, can't you?
during the song.
Yeah, yeah,
In the middle of the song, which
exactly.
is
Just talk
great.
and do whatever, and then
Yeah. I did want to keep doing it. I wanted to look at it as another part of things that I did because people like Bus D's in Italy,
yeah, yeah,
he was doing it before. I watch a stream, I'm like, this guy's fucking this many people watching him, this many followers, like this is insane.
yeah,
Because and he's just sitting there in his apartment.
yeah. Just playing
This
records.
is not just playing records. This is not. He doesn't even have a fucking mic. Like, what is this shit? And then I found out that he had been doing it, and this is what, and he already knew. He knew how much what you need, what you could do on it. You can sit there and play records. It's
Yeah.
not that big a deal. It's not that serious. Which I got caught up in like this is some serious shit, but it's not that serious.
I think now as well, people have it on a lot just in the background, like a
Yeah,
radio station. They might not be
yeah,
typing or being part of the chat, but they've just got it on. So a lot of the time, it
yeah,
doesn't matter what you're doing, but it's
uh,
the freedom to play whatever you want, whenever
yeah.
you want, which is the appealing bit, isn't it?
I got that during my jazz streams. the Isle of Jazz ones. That's when I figured it out finally. I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, I'm playing background music. This is great because I'm enjoying what I'm playing too, and I'm finding out these records." Like I was playing B-sides of stuff, and it was cool because I was really trying to fit anything I could into the jazz box, you know.
Yeah.
So I'd be playing. It was really fun. That's one stream that I kind of miss.
Yeah. Well, you maybe come back to it later. That's the thing.
Yeah,
As children get older, your times and your schedule will change
yeah.
and things, and it's all cool. We've been chatting for quite a while, and I know you're a busy man, but just to sort of wrap it up, have you got some events coming up that you want to tell us about, and people might want to get involved?
Not really. I don't know.
Well, okay. Here's a question then. You've mentioned Jazzy Jeff, and we've talked about the Players Retreat. You've talked about
I love that guy.
oh yeah. What about Scratch Bastard's barbecues? Tell us about those.
Those are awesome. That's fun. Those are great because he can sell out he can sell tickets without even announcing a lineup, which is insanity. So I love seeing how Bastards Barbecue, started as like a party, just a party with good DJs, and now it's a festival. It's literally a
Yeah.
2-day festival in Toronto. Tickets you can buy the whole weekend. You can buy 1-day tickets, and it's like it's really great. Like he's really built something very cool because the lineup is curated from a very different standpoint, not from like a regular festival. It's kind of like,
Well, he's just free to do what he wants, isn't he?
yeah, there you
And
go.
book whoever he thinks is appropriate for his community that he's built up. Because
Yeah,
at the end of the day, we've talked about it a lot, but it's about community, isn't it? And being able to talk and share what's going on, and just having a good time, really.
yeah,
You know,
and he likes to showcase new DJs and new things as well. He
yeah,
tries to bring people from the city as well, showcase people from that city that he's bringing it to, which is
yeah,
great. He always has an international guest, but he always has the local people that maybe someone that knows me doesn't know this other DJ, and for sure vice versa.
yeah,
And I've been, he reaches out to me almost, I think every year because I'm pretty. I can be used in any way. I could MC it. I could DJ the b-boy battle, the breaking battle.
yeah.
I can do any kind of thing. So I'm
All rounder.
kind of all rounder
Yeah, yeah.
and so. But I would go even if I wasn't playing. Obviously, so,
We'll have a quick chat afterwards. But yeah, it's been amazing. Thank you. We
thanks.
I wasn't sure it was going to happen at the beginning, but we got the technology
I know.
working, and
Thank
we got
God. I mean, this is what it was going to look like anyway,
yeah,
except I had this mic.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's cool. It
So
sounds good. It sounds good, and it's the conversation. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. Show
thank you.
50. Yeah, I can't believe we've done 50 shows. Next week, I'm talking to Neil Anderson, who is Original Gravity label. They put out a lot of amazing covers, which you may know. So yes, that's going to be a good conversation. But otherwise, thank you everyone for tuning in. It's been amazing, and thank you so much for being here. Flip out.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much, Criztoz.
Easy.